Hi, everyone, and welcome to our version of the Mental Wellness Fair, Stress It Out Stress Management. Sadly, this will not be a live session, but we'll do our very best through this workshop to provide you with the information in regards to stress management. Next slide, please. Okay, so before we begin, I'd like to introduce your fellow mental wellness peers, which includes myself, Juwaria, Anne, and Francesca. So starting with myself, my name is Rianne. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm majoring in mental health studies with a double minor in English literature and philosophy.
Hi, I'm Juwaria. My pronouns are she and her. I am doing a double major in health studies and international development studies, and I am joining from Toronto.
Hi, my name is Francesca. I am a fourth year double major student in mental health studies and philosophy. My pronouns are she and her, and I am joining you from Scarborough, Ontario.
Hello everyone, my name is Anne. I'm currently majoring in quality management and international business. My pronouns is she and her. I'm joining in from Vietnam.
Okay, so before we begin, we'll have the statement of acknowledgement of traditional land. I wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit River. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. Next slide.
Okay, so first we're going to be talking about what stress is and why we feel stress. So stress is the natural response of the body to a real or perceived threat. So this response can get us ready for action and help us get out of danger. But nowadays, most of the threats that we perceive or that we face aren't physical, and it's something that we can't fight off and we can't run away from. But usually, these threats are just problems that we have to work through instead. So, for example, COVID-19 is very much a real threat in all our lives, and some of us may have that fear of catching or spreading it. Also, there may be a lot of news surrounding the pandemic and the conditions, the worsening conditions, and we may have that constant fear of looking up the news and figuring out that things are getting worse. Another example is technology and social media use. Because of the increased use of technology and social media during physical distancing, it really has brought a lot of benefits, for example, connecting with our friends and family. But there's also negative results of social media use, where if we may share a lot about ourselves online, there's always consequences of body shaming, cyberbullying, and hate messages, which again have very damaging effects to our mental and physical health. FOMO, the fear of missing out, is also very common among students and youth. Some of us may have that constant fear of missing out on important information or experiences from a specific event or a specific class, or even making fun experiences or just in general having fun with our friends. We may have that fear of constantly distancing ourselves from the things that we enjoy to do, and perhaps even being uninterested in something. Next slide, please. So I have a question for you all. What is one thing that causes you stress in university life? So one thing that causes me stress is just the different conditions that we are facing nowadays. Due to the shifts in online learning, it has become more difficult for me personally to be able to manage my time well, especially staying at home. And I have that fear that I'm not really in school. It doesn't feel like I am in school or that I am studying because I'm not able to perhaps sometimes manage my time well around watching my lectures or doing my assignments. So that is definitely fear of mine, and that definitely does cause some stress in my life.
Yeah, so I agree with what Juwaria said, especially with time management and the conditions that we're in right now with online learning. I find it particularly stressful to time manage myself when it comes to watching, especially recorded lectures, because sometimes, like when you don't have a designated time to watch something, you find yourself having all these lectures piling up. So that definitely, time management is one thing that definitely causes me stress.
Yeah, I'm the same, with Juwaria and Rayan. It's just It's a lot. Personally, I balance 2 jobs, online learning, a new puppy, family life, social life. Plus, we're all experiencing this new world of COVID. So for me, it is a big time management thing that does cause me stress because of everything that's going on in the world right now.
Yes, I definitely agree with you all, and just want to bring in the perspective of an international student. So I'm currently away from Toronto, and I believe a lot of students also away. And the time difference really causing me a lot of time stressing out because have to catch up with synchronous class and also the changing in sleeping schedule.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you have provided some really good common causes of stress in university life, and I'll be looking at some more as well. So, of course, there's that increase in workload. Besides having to manage academics, some of us may have jobs on the side, and just other commitments. For example, taking care of our family, or just having to spend time elsewhere. Exam and essay writing may be very difficult. For example, the standards that we are supposed to achieve in university may be very different from what we have experienced in high school. And having to achieve that standard of exam and essay writing may be very difficult, and we may not know how to achieve that. Parental expectations is also common. So we may have different expectations of ourselves or what we may want to pursue in the future compared to what our parents expect from us. And having to talk about that and discuss that with our family may be very difficult. Financial problems is also common, and trying to allocate and think about how we may be able to pay tuition, and having to work jobs on the side, as well as having to apply for scholarships may be very time consuming and really affect our lives as well. We may have relationship problems as well, so having to form new relationships or even trying to leave the old ones may have a very heavy impact on our mental health as well. Moving away from home is a common cause of stress for first-year students, and having to adjust to a new environment that is very much different from our home, and being around our family constantly perhaps. We may not have the same things in our new environment as we used to, and that we may have been very grown attached to. So it does tend to become difficult in that aspect as well. Next slide, please. So some of the common signs of stress among students includes feeling overwhelmed, worried, or anxious at times, feelings of sadness, sudden changes in mood, and social isolation. It is important to realize that we are not the only ones. We personally are not the only ones going through stress. Everyone goes through stress at some point in their lives, and it's really important to have that conversation around stress because it's very much a real thing that all students go through. And so whenever we feel stress, it's always important to realize that we are not alone in this, and that other people may also be feeling stressed due to the same reasons. Loss of appetite or overeating is also common. Changes in sleep patterns, for example, oversleeping or not sleeping enough hours a day, hours of the night, sorry. And then negative self-talk. So for example, always telling ourselves that we may not be able to get through this, or that it is extremely challenging, that we may not be able to accomplish it in any way, or we may fail something, can also have a really negative effect on us, instead of actually positive self-talking and motivating ourselves to move further and work harder as well. Next slide, please. So here are some coping strategies that are very helpful and very effective to cope with stress. I'll be looking through a few of them. So the first one is setting realistic goals. We know ourselves best, and we know what we can achieve as well. So it's really important to think about these realistic goals when we create a schedule for ourselves, as we can set these realistic goals that we want to achieve per day, and then work through them. In this way, we actually feel happy about what we achieved, and we don't put ourselves down, and we don't really develop that negative mindset. The second one I want to talk about is getting involved in some kind of activity or hobby that is enjoyable to us. Getting involved in activities and hobbies really helps us to de-stress and really helps us to express our emotions through whatever we enjoy. It may be art, music, writing, etc. The third one I would like to talk about is really talking about our problems. It may be with a friend or group of friends, with our family members, or even using on-campus and off-campus services, for example, certain apps, talking to counselors or even other professionals about our emotions and what we may be struggling with. Next slide, please. So here are just some other ways that we can cope with stress and essentially take a break that we may have mentioned or we may have skipped through. And feel free to look through this list and look at what strategies we practice that you may practice specifically, or what strategies you may want to practice starting today that you may really have an interest in. Next slide, please. Okay, so another question I have for you is, what is one way you de-stress or take a break? So one way that I de-stress is by cooking. I really enjoy cooking, especially cultural food, and it really helps me. It helps me move my mind away from things that are really stressing me out. For example, any assignments coming up, or studying for exams, or trying to learn something that is really difficult, and focusing on things that really make me happy and that really help me connect with my culture. And again, it's really important for me to do that, but it also really helps me to relieve that stress that is in other aspects of my life as well.
For myself, I think one way that I de-stress or take a break is that I personally enjoy writing, so I have notebooks right beside me on my desk. Whenever I do feel overwhelmed or stressed with whether that be my own daily problems or even just school, I get my notebook out, write down how I'm feeling, and kind of review for at the end of the day how I felt. And it's like talking to my past self, or kind of reviewing my own emotions. And one thing that I've kind of like to add is that everyone manages stress in their own way. So if there are certain things that like you feel you want to try and they don't work out, or you feel more overwhelmed in doing so, there's always other coping strategies, as Juwaria did mention before. So don't hesitate to keep trying until you find something that works well for you.
Yeah, for sure. One way that I de-stress is I like to take my dog on a walk, because it gets me out of the house in the fresh air, and it lets me spend time with my favorite thing on planet Earth, which is my dog. And another way, I like to de-stress if I don't want to leave the house, is I will literally just lay on my bed, put my headphones on, and listen to some music that I really, really like. Or I'll even get up and dance it out in my room, because it just gets me moving. Anything that makes me happy helps me de-stress personally.
For me, because I'm an artistic person, so I like something that relates to drawing or looking at Pinterest. So one thing I have been doing lately is doing Zen doodling. So watching a bunch of YouTube videos and somehow like drawing with like the person there.
Thank you, everyone. You provided some really good examples about on ways to de-stress, and I would like to go through some other ways as well. So one of them is staying positive, finding activities that really allow us to express our laughter or really help us to smile more, and they make us really happy as well. Meditating is also very important. Meditation, yoga, and prayer can also allow us to relax our mind and really allow us to implement mindfulness into our lives. Exercise is also very important. Finding a sport, a specific workout routine, or even just a class that we enjoy attending that may not always not only improve our mental health but also our physical health as well. Taking time each day to turn off all devices, so it can be 15 minutes or even 2 hours, or trying to set a specific bedtime from which we can start to unplug an hour before, and then really focus on ourselves and really reflect on our day is also very much important. The fifth way is to find other ways to de-stress. And I want to reiterate what Ryan said. It's very important to realize that one method that may work for me may not work for you or may not work for everyone else. And it's really important to look through various ways of de-stressing. We have to ensure that de-stressing it isn't really stressful in a way for us. So for example, if a method doesn't work for you, feel free to choose other things in your life. Really experiment with other things. For example, taking a bath, dancing. If you have a dog, you can walk the dog. Finding things in your life that you enjoy and that really allow you to de-stress is important, and it really allows you to take a break from all the other stresses in all aspects of your life. Next slide, please.
And next, we'll be watching videos from MySP, which is a guided meditation app. You guys can actually download this app to try later on, just a few minutes a day for guided meditation.
Take a moment to imagine a bright blue sky stretching off into the distance. Feels pretty good, right? This is a perfect metaphor for the mind, a blank canvas on which thoughts, feelings, and experiences appear. Okay, so maybe there are just a few clouds, but they tend not to bother us or distract us too much, especially if they're the cute little fluffy variety. This is how the mind appears when it's calm, bright, serene, and happy. But life isn't always easy. Sometimes there are a lot more clouds in the sky. Sometimes it might be the dark and stormy variety. Occasionally, we might even begin to wonder if a hurricane's on the way. It gets to the point that it's hard to think of anything else. In fact, sometimes we get so obsessed by the clouds that we forget about the blue sky altogether. But it's still there. Every time you're in a plane and you fly through the clouds, there it is, right? Without fail. Blue sky. It's easy to forget that what we're looking for is already here. And that's why we need reminding.
And building up on that, we would like to ask you some questions about meditation and breathing exercise. So first of all, what do you think about meditation exercise, and do you think it's an effective form to de-stressing? Waria, do you mind sharing your opinion first?
Sure. So I think meditation exercise is really, really effective. Again, it really helps us to get in focus, and it really allows us to establish mindfulness and to essentially focus on the task at hand without feeling excess stress. And to reiterate that, I think it's a really effective form to de-stress. It's not something that I usually practice, but during times of stress, I really do enjoy doing breathing exercises because it really helps me to get in a better mood and in a better mindset, and help me to focus on the task better. And will I conduct breathing and meditation exercises after this workshop? Of course I will. And I'm trying to implement it more into my life, more outside of just feeling stressed, just as a general everyday practice.
So for myself, when it comes to meditation, when I do find myself meditating, I think it really helps me ground myself, especially nowadays. I feel like we're so disconnected with our own mind and body connection. Meditation really helps with reconnecting with that part of ourselves that we kind of don't really put time for. I do believe 100% it's an effective form of distressing. I think it does take time to really get your mindset, and sometimes like you might find yourself falling asleep, but then also it's very relaxing in that sense. And will I conduct breathing meditation exercises on my own? For sure, 100%.
So I really liked the meditation exercise. I think it really gave a good perspective on stress and, seeing the calm in the storm. I do think it's an effective form of de-stressing. I think, as Rand said, it does take a little bit to get used to because you do start falling asleep. The voice is quite mesmerizing, but I think it can be once you get the hang of it. And will I conduct my own breathing and meditation exercises on my own? Yes, I will. I actually have the Headspace app. I really, really like it. And I think it works really well for not just me, but for, all the others who use it.
Thank you all for your sharing. I totally agree that meditation is something that needs your time to gradually getting adjusted to. And for our audience, would you be conduct breathing and meditation exercise on your own after this workshop, or have you already started doing it? Share with us later on. And moving on, I'd like to introduce to you an app which called MySP that is provided by our university, if you haven't known. So feel free to take a screenshot of this page and try out the apps later on.
Okay, so the final part of our presentation talks about eustress, which essentially means positive thinking and really understanding challenges as a positive rather than perceiving them as a negative stress or negative threat. So essentially, this can be very important, especially during exam times or midterm season, when we have a lot of exams and assignments piling up. It's really important to think about our final exams and our assignments as challenges than threats. And due to this, it can be very motivating and really help provide us with a strong sense of accomplishment once we finish it. Perspective, attitude, and mindfulness is what gets us in the zone, or what counselors call it the flow, where we feel enough stress to feel productive and motivated to keep going. That certain level of stress is also really important, to have a certain amount of stress. Of course, excess stress can be deteriorating for our mental and physical health. So it's important to ensure that we always think about these challenges in a positive mindset, and we avoid thinking them in a negative mindset. Next slide, please. Just a few reminders before we end off. Everyone experiences stress differently, so the things that we presented in this presentation may be different than what you may experience, and that is perfectly fine. Everyone copes with stress differently as well. Again, this is reiterating what Rain said. Some of the strategies that we may have talked about that we personally practice may be very different from what you practice, and that is, again, completely fine. It's always really important to find strategies that really help us specifically or personally feel happier or feel in that right mindset, and really help us to ground us. There's a variety of resources available for you on and off campus to manage stress, and the link below helps to provide provides a list of mental health resources on and off campuses based on our mental health, self-help groups, one-on-one services, and even crisis or urgent issues. Next slide, please.
Okay, so to end things off, on behalf of the Mental Wellness Peers, we'd like to thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact or ask the Health and Wellness Center. And once again, thank you for joining us, and please stay tuned to events to follow.